Good afternoon. I'd like to welcome all in the audience as well as those on the conference call to the
Has joined.
Horry County Solid Waste Authority regular meeting, May 26, 2020.
Has joined.
That probably don't go on. Yeah, probably. Again, thanks everybody for being in attendance. It's good to see you again. I'm going to ask Mr. Carl Schwarzkopf to do the invocation, and then I'll ask Ms. Pam Creech to do the pledge of allegiance.
Let us pray. Dear Lord God, Heavenly Father, we thank you for the opportunity to join and assemble. We ask that you guide us and direct us as we deal with the issues that are in front of us. We ask that these decisions be made in your light, in your name, and in your favor. We also ask to continue giving us health as the COVID-19 virus is still plaguing many parts of this country and this world. We ask that you be with us, you guide us and direct us. In the name of your loving Son, amen.
I
pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. I need to get an approval of the agenda.
So moved.
Second.
It's been properly moved and seconded. Are there any questions? All those in favor, let it be known by saying aye.
Aye.
Ayes have it, and the agenda has been approved. I also need to get the approval of the minutes for April 28th, regular board meeting.
So moved.
Second.
It's been properly moved and seconded. Are there any questions? All those in favor, let it be known by saying aye.
Aye.
Ayes have it, and the minutes have been approved. I have requests for public input from two individuals this afternoon. Remember, it's a 5-minute session. Ms. Bills will let you know when there's 1 minute left so that you can wrap up and we don't catch you
Has joined.
in the midst of your closing remarks. So Ms. Woods, we're glad to have you again, and welcome to the Solid Waste Authority.
My name is Amelia Wood, and I'm here tonight as a representative of Erie County Rising. I am a board member of that organization, and also I've been asked to represent the Erie County League of Women Voters. So my comments will be on behalf of those organizations. First of all, I want to publicly thank Kevin Hardy for serving on the Erie County Flood Committee and supporting the efforts of Erie County Rising and all of his constituents in House District 105. Kevin wanted to be here, but he was not able to. He's sitting right outside. He wasn't one of the first three to get here. Erie County Rising is a grassroots organization that seeks to prevent catastrophic economic losses due to flooding and to reduce flood vulnerability for all our neighbors. Our goal is to try to future-proof our county against flooding. Our members were inspired to form the group following 3 500-year storms in 5 years that resulted in numerous lives lost and millions of dollars in recovery costs. Flooding has become the #1 issue in Erie County, and our members and volunteers are demanding positive and immediate solutions. We know that decisions made today can have an impact for generations to come, and remaining silent on the subject and waiting for change is not the answer. We're asking you tonight to immediately halt the expansion process of the landfill and have a public discussion with the people in Erie County who care and are knowledgeable about alternatives. A public discussion about alternatives hasn't happened before now, as far as we know. There's little evidence in any minutes that you have that you've provided significant rationale for why you changed your mind about the plan that was in existence prior to the recent landfill expansion application. Before this last application, you were planning to put C&D waste in the municipal solid waste landfill. We're wondering what was wrong with that plan. you also had no objections for the community or environmental groups on that plan. Also, last year in May, you were presented with another alternative that the environmental groups supported and one that the Solid Waste Authority intended to implement years ago. We wondered what's wrong with that plan. And would y'all like for me to just stop right now and let you explain? This would be a perfect opportunity for some discussion on this. We have thousands of people in Erie County watching on Facebook right now. And if y'all would like to, maybe answer a couple of those questions now, that would solve a lot of our curiosity about things that are going on. Anybody have any questions or want to answer any questions?
Amelia, I don't think it'd be appropriate this time that we take any of your 5-minute time, so please continue.
Okay, thank you. It seems as though this board must be conducting your business in the back room, because it seems that nothing's happening here in the front room. And I don't know how you can make decisions and move forward with this little information as it's presented in any of your public meetings. Okay, one thing you could do right now that would be very reasonable would be to vote tonight to reconsider the way that you're moving on the landfill expansion issue. An honorable choice and decision for you to make would be to take into consideration the fact that your current plan will most likely have an impact on flooding downstream. There's not a simple formula to determine exactly how much destruction will occur as a result of changing 50 acres of pervious surface to impervious, as you'd be doing by filling the borrow pits. But we do know that the answer to math problems like that are growing exponentially. We know that what you intend to do will have an adverse impact and contribute to flooding. We'll just have to wait until after the next storm and after you expand to give you the dollar amount of what the damages will be. But please just stop and think and do the right thing. You are the only ones now. We can't depend on DHEC to stop this. We can't depend on DHEC to look at alternatives. Each one of you sitting here are the only ones that can solve this problem right now. And it's definitely not a good time to be having a public hearing. And that public hearing would be, in my opinion, having a public hearing at this point in time is just kind of a backwards approach. That public hearing should have been a long time ago.
Times.
Okay.
Thank you.
Well, thank you very much for.
Well, let me just say, we appreciate your comments and your input. It's citizens like you who have concerns, who continues to make the Horry County Solid Waste Authority one of the best in the business at what they do. And that's just not a statement that comes from me. That is recognized by DHEC. I've been to several conferences, and that is recognized throughout the U.S. We don't just meet with people in South Carolina. So I say that to you, and I say congratulations, continue to give us your input, because we do consider all of the things that you just talked about. And so we appreciate your input, and thank you for coming.
I have to say one more thing, the input must be considered privately, because it doesn't seem to be considered publicly. And that's what I'm begging for, is public participation in the planning process.
Well, I'm not going to get in a debate with you. We have records that shows we've had public input. Your time is up. Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, we have Ms. Guilford via conference call.
Thank you, and my name is Grace Gifford. I thank Ms. Murphy for facilitating my participation in tonight's public input. I hope that you are all well and staying safe. My family lives west of Conway, and we use the Homewood Convenience Center. I'd like to thank the employees that work there because they do a great job. This evening, I'd like to share comments from the Chirping Bird Society. We would like to propose a simple solution to reduce some of our plastic problems, but first, some brief background. Chirping Bird Society was organized as it became obvious that plastic, especially single-use plastic, was taking a toll on our beaches and the planet. We have shared our message through Strand Straw this summer, urging reusable bags when people shop and alternatives to plastic disposables. Last year, we invited a very special speaker to the area, Dr. Leo Trisandi. In 2018, Dr. Trisandi, who's a pediatrician and research scientist, published his book. The title is Fatter, Sicker, Poorer, The Urgent Threat of Hormone-Disrupting Chemicals to Our Health and Future and What We Can Do About It. He's the director of the Division of Environmental Pediatrics at NYU Medical Center, among other titles. In his book, Dr. Trisandi explains the studies that show how the chemicals in plastics affect child development and human health. These chemicals have disruptive effects on human hormone regulation that cause disease. The research is conclusive. Plastics are making our people fatter, sicker, and poorer. I encourage you all to read this book. His name is spelled Trasande, Trisandi. With most of the recyclable commodities market closed to the U.S., it is unreasonable to plan to landfill plastic waste forever into the future. Your advocacy and education are key to stopping plastic waste at its source. The waste characterization studies, the many trainings your staff and board have attended, and your experience point to how Horry County can move forward. The expense and risk of business as usual is now being borne by the public here. It should be the plastic producers who should be held accountable for the true costs of toxic plastic. Other jurisdictions are already enjoying the benefits of conversion to closed-loop packaging with strong bottle bill type legislation. Use effective lobbying as a member of the Regional Solid Waste Association to lead for change. In early times, some made a practice of throwing garbage in the swamp. Now, we know these areas are wetlands and essential to the web of life. There is no unlimited supply. There is no away, as in throw it away. We have finite natural resources and cannot afford to abuse them with disposable plastic culture. So how about that simple solution? Here it comes. Since the pandemic, many families now get takeout, where before COVID, they would have dined in. The takeout bags now and in the past often include plastic cutlery and plastic containers of condiments. These meals will be eaten at home, where families generally have their own bottle of ketchup and metal utensils. So here's that simple solution. Conduct an advertising campaign to educate restaurants and takeout consumers to leave plastic out of the bag.
1 minute.
Please come up with a catchy term that means bag mine without plastic, or something like packet green, no plastic. And use the powerful advertising power of the authority to encourage a simple new way of preventing plastic from eating up our landfill space. The voting citizens of Horry County will be gratified when they are no longer stuck with the trash bill generated by tourism and the plastic lobby. We are confronting the myth of recycling. The circle cannot be closed in your meeting tonight. Direct and intermediate action can turn off plastic waste at its source. Thank you for your time.
Thank you, Ms. Guilford, and I'd like to say that we agree on a lot of the things that you said. And any way that we can work with the chirping birds to try to diminish the amount of plastics that's being used and thrown away, we would be glad to do that. We have put together some initiatives in North Long Beach and other areas to try to reduce the plastic. I know during the pandemic that a lot of people are using plastics, and so that's something that I agree with you that we may be able to mount a campaign on to try to help reduce some of that use. But there have been campaigns in place to try to do that. We did a series at the Art Museum about 6 months ago, where we had several speakers come in and talk about the use of plastics. Bo Eyes and myself did a conference where we talked about the use of plastics and microplastics. And so we are not unaware of the effects that plastics are having, and we are working with our legislatures to try and limit some of them and get the manufacturers involved in taking their responsibility. Ms. Pam Creech has been a real long go-getter on trying to get the industry to understand that we need to have them involved in the plastic recycled and to reduce the plastic. So I appreciate your comments, and I appreciate the people that are listening, and hopefully that they will join in and hear what you're saying and help the solid waste do this. And I'd like for you to remember that this is a community project. The solid waste cannot do this alone. We need to get everybody involved in trying to eliminate the amount of plastic that we use. So I appreciate your comments, and I'll open, anybody else has any comments? Appreciate it, and thank you for tuning in, and stay tuned with us. Okay, we'll move on to department reports. We'll have recycling and corporate affairs. Ms. Murphy.
Has left.
Good evening.
Good to see you all.
Good to see you. Well, I can see you.
We're hiding your smile.
It's in there, it's in there.
That one of those copper masks that I see that advertised on TV,
No, it's not that.
rewashable.
It is washable though, absolutely. Gotta stop throwing it away, it is washable. Our report begins on page 12. I want to begin with an update on our DPEC grants for fiscal year 2020. We did receive last month an additional $22,823.75 for contractor costs associated with the waste tire grant. This is one of the modifications they did in the third quarter of the year. So we do anticipate using a good portion of that. Just for your information, because of the pandemic, DHEC has extended the grant period, which would normally end on June 30th through September 30th, 2020, to give everybody time to be able to use their grant funding appropriately. We won't have a problem with that. We're pretty much online with June 30th. Next, it has been a different year. However, we're still able to provide scholarships to 12 recipients from Roy County Schools this year. One thing they were not able to do is the customary volunteer work at an event. All of our events were canceled, but we did get to talk with them over the phone mostly. I did meet one person to person, so, and they were all still excited about being able to have this honor. I do want to, since they're not here to speak to you personally, I do want to read each of their names and what school they're from. Claire Carter, Academy of Arts, Science, and Technology. Marquez Carter, Early College High School. Jordan Elliott, Green Sea High School. Hannah Hall, Socastee High School. Kylie Harris, Academy of Technology and Academics. Alexandra Hill, Ainer High School. Shelby Keith, Carolina Forest High School. Logan Cutson, Morris High School. Abigail McNair, Conway High School. Evan Renshaw, Scholars Academy. Lauren Teal, North Myrtle Beach High School. And Lindsay Williams, St. James High School. They've all been notified, they've all turned in the appropriate paperwork to receive their scholarship, and they all have received it as of last week. Our Clark Green Handed recipient for the month of April, Ms. Kathy Smith. We caught her at the Crossroads Recycling Center.
residents are still recycling hard and heavy. So she was, excited about being honored for her efforts. On the monthly reports, we do list, let's see, do we have anything? I hope some of you have caught our WOW Wednesdays,
Yes.
Watch Out Wednesdays.
Yes.
That's become fun for us. And another way for us to still maintain some type of contact with the public. But with regard to the unincorporated collection system, the recycling center, I did put two charts in there for your information. One, on the number of pulls and one on the amount of tonnage that came to the center during the month of April as compared to April of 2019. And, significant increases as compared to the last year. As it turns out, record increases with regard to the amount of tonnage that came in during the month, as well as the number of pulls. Overall, we had an increase of 23.2% in the amount of tonnage that came through the centers, and an increase of 32.5% in the number of pulls. And, you know, if you just wanted raw numbers, we had almost 1,700 more tons to come in last month, and almost 700 more pulls as compared to last April. We have begun to see a slight decrease. I talked to Danny about it last week. I think it's a combination of things. The weather has been quite rainy, and a lot of other things are beginning to open up. So people have other things to do besides clean up and come to the sites. So hopefully, May won't be as high of increases as it was. Any questions?
Mr. Chairman, looking at the tire grants that we have, and in October 29, it was 50,000, in italics, it's 45,000 contractor costs, which is an increase of 22. Why would it be that much of an increase for us to?
What happened, because of the major cleanup in Berkeley County during the last fiscal year, DHEC did not award contractor costs for tire grants in the full amount that was requested. And what they did instead was, they went every quarter and looked to see what funding was available to supplement what they gave initially. So initially, we were awarded $22,823.75.
Okay.
Each quarter, after the first quarter, they've given us a modification, an additional $22,820.75. We are still not at the amount we originally requested, and I don't have that number, but once.
70,000, wasn't
No, it was more than the 91,000 that we have now. So I wanna say it was less than 100,000, but I have to go back and look. We won't receive exactly what we asked for, but it won't be as, less amount that we thought we were gonna get. But they had to do it quarterly just to see what was in the fund.
It seems to me, and we've discussed this for quite a few years, because county council has as well, that it costs a lot of money for us to go and clean up tires and for us to pay to have them hauled off. And it's just this week that we see people in our neighborhood drive up with big trailers behind them and a lot of tires. And I can only assume that people that are selling tires are putting them on cars. It's cheaper to get a man that comes by with a trailer instead of doing it correctly to pick up tires. And then as you go down the road, you'll see 6 thrown out here in the ditch and 7 thrown out here and several there. Now, we've talked about and have talked to county council about in their business license. And in my opinion, DHEC and some of our legislation should be as well, that whoever is selling these tires should have to account for how they get rid of them. And after the state paid millions of dollars to clean up one place, I would hope at some point our county leaders and our legislators would put something in a law that would make the people you're paying to have that tire disposed of. Obviously, whoever is putting a lot of them on is paying individuals coming by a lot less than to come in here as a business and bring these in here. Otherwise, you wouldn't see this happen all over this county, and I'm sure it happens all over South Carolina. Is there, in DHEC, are there no laws or?
Well, you
that-
pay a $2 disposal fee when you get new tires.
We do,
And
but the
then-
person
and then-
putting the tire on is supposed to be paying to bring it.
Well, then they pay, like Allen Scrap Metal has a container set up at several local tire distributors, and they put the tire in there, and then they, the person that is putting the tire on the car then has to pay Allen to haul it off.
Well, somebody isn't paying the correct people to do it all the time. How many tires, Danny, did we clean up last year that we used a lot of money in different locations
Yeah,
for?
we cleaned up probably 3 locations, but we got grant money
Yeah,
to do that, and there was a certain amount to do. Now, a lot of these tires, the new tire dealers pretty much collect that money, have the receipts, but a lot of these guys selling used tires and $10 tires, and it's, they don't have that receipt, they don't pay it. They're not paying for it to get disposed now, if they can get around it.
right. They're getting around it somehow because you wouldn't have this many roads with 10 tires thrown in this ditch and 10 in this one and people throwing them out. To do that, is there no way that, is there no law on DHEC books that makes these people
DHEC,
and do some kind of code enforcement?
we really got involved with the people up, across from the airport in Lawrence. Guy rented a friend his house, brick home, and the guy went back to check on his house, and there was probably 10,000 tires in his backyard. And we got DHEC involved in that, and guy would rather serve jail time than pay the fine. And I think that's exactly what he ended up doing. But we got a grant to help clean that up. We had one in Little River last year, we had one on the Sand Ridge up off 90 that we helped clean up. But it's not as bad as it used to be. They may be in the ditches, but, somebody still got to clean them up. You know, we were gonna go up on tire disposal in the budget, and y'all had approved that. Then we said we were gonna go back to the original existing budget.
Right.
You know, it may be the thing to do, to go ahead and do the tires,
Yeah.
because we have to pay somebody to haul
We
them off and
choose
dispose of
not to put them in the landfill. Therefore, we have to pay somebody
them.
to
That's right.
haul them off, and we don't need to put them in the landfill.
Yeah.
But at some point, if our legislators would make some laws with teeth in it and code enforcement, it wouldn't cost to do that, and we could keep it out.
Why can't we grind them and sell them?
I think we looked into that at one
We didn't
time.
have a market for it, do we?
Been tried in Berkeley,
People are
tried in Berkeley County,
going
had
like crazy with used tire kits.
I know when we
They're
went
giving
to,
the grant right now. I mean, they've been giving the grant for 3 or 4 years.
about 3 years ago, when I was up in Cherokee, they were grinding them. They were making some kind of powder that they used in a base for cement. But I don't think they got a real big market. They had an end product, but they didn't have a market. And they were grinding them, but I don't know.
that's what happened in
whatever
Berkeley
happened.
County. They
I
just,
was talking about 17 ships. Ships for 17, I know that big machine ain't that expensive.
So, I mean, if we can find a market for the end product, then that may be something that we can do. And based on the fact about the laws, I laugh, because DA probably does have laws, and every day we got people that are looking how to get around the laws, and so, we probably should have some of that, but like Danny said, I think we kind of cut down on it a little bit, but I agree with you. Like I told the lady, you always out there championing legislation to get, and the legislators have to get involved and making some laws that has some teeth in it. And because my question is, who goes to these places to regulate them? Who monitors them?
Right.
I go down here to a little place where I buy, used tires for my farm truck, and they charge me, like you say, $2 a tire, but they got piles of them out there, so I don't know who comes in to regulate,
2
to
years
make sure
ago,
that they get rid of them.
we had reached our threshold where it was gonna cost us.
Yeah.
And we stopped accepting tires.
Right.
And a week later, we had 3 different illegal dump sites filled
Right.
with tires.
Yeah.
That's what happens when we
When you don't
refuse
think
them,
that.
is they show up at illegal
Yeah.
dump sites. And that's why the budget needs to be enough, Danny, to cover that, because we can't not accept them.
Right.
I think we need to probably go back and take a look at that in this year's budget
Please.
to cover the cost of the tires and
Please.
the big tires. I mean, they're making money on them. It's the ones that's dumping them illegally is causing the
That's the
problem.
cost.
Yeah. Thank you.
Anything else
Good
on
question.
tires?
Good question.
One thing I'd ask for you to do for us, because we always love to see the scholarship candidates, and we didn't get a chance to talk to them or even look at them this year. Could you put together a letter of congratulatory for us from the board that we can sign, or I can sign, and we send it to
I'll
them?
do that, yes, sir.
I think that would be good for
Yeah.
them to have.
We usually send them a couple of letters, but
Okay.
we can either have one direct
Yeah.
from the board.
But
We
yeah.
usually get to see them
We
face
get
to face
that.
All right.
and
Okay.
congratulate them.
Yeah, that'll be good. At least they can say, we got a letter from the board. I think they like that, even though all of them don't talk, I think they appreciate the idea.
Oh, yeah.
Okay, that's good for me. Any other questions for,
I've got
go?
one. On the top of page 18 and 19, it says UCS poll reports. What's UCS stand for? Where I come from stands for University of Karl Schwarzkopf. I'm sure that this isn't it, so,
That stands for Unincorporated Collection System.
okay, thank you very much. That's a lot better than University of Karl Schwarzkopf.
Good, thank you.
Thank you, ma'am.
Thank you. Jan?
Good evening. The financial reports begin on page 22. Through the end of April, we should be at around 83% of budget. As you can see, our solid waste is just below budget at 82.73%. Mixed construction is well above at 88.17%, and our yard waste is just a little above at 85.63%. And as I mentioned, of course, at the last meeting, we've seen a decrease in our solid waste due to the businesses being closed, schools being closed. We're hoping to start to see some of that increase pick back up as things start to open up. But as you can see, our mixed construction has stayed strong. I think, as Esther mentioned, people are out there cleaning out, and I don't know where they're getting it all from, but everybody should have a nice, clean home. The recyclable sales, as you can see, are at 69.1% of budget. The C&D processing facility has saved 50.89 days of landfill airspace. The materials recycling facility of Collection Holland has saved 86.12 days of landfill airspace, and the store at 0.045 days.
We're not nearly where we were at this point last year.
Well, as a matter of fact, that's what I just pointed out, and really, the C&D processing facility is right on. Last year was 50.07, so it's a little bit above, and the MRF is actually ahead. Last year was at 67.52, so we're actually ahead on the MRF compared to last year. So we are doing, like I said, we're kind of on track, not doing a little bit better this year.
But our airspace days saved are way off where we were last year.
Right.
That's the point I was trying to make.
Yes, sir. Over on page 24 is the income statement. And as you can see, our revenue continues to stay above budget at 84.77% of budget, and our expenses stay well below at 77.75% of budget. As you can see, for the month, we had revenue over expenses of $40,875.20. And year-to-date, we have revenue over expenses of $1,768,470.96. And this tends to be our heavy time. We get towards the end of the year, a lot of extra expenses. So I have to commend staff on really doing a great job of holding those expenses down. They know that things are tight, things have been kind of a tough month, and so like I said, they've done a great job. The only other thing I have is on page 32, and I know Michael kind of get into the C&D recycling facility. But as you can see, they had a really good month and taking over 1,747.28 tons over the C&D recycling facility. I think with that increase in C&D material that we've been getting in, we've tried to take a lot over there, and they've done a great job to take it over there and process it. So that's up for the year. I think that's been their highest month so far, so I know Mike will kind of get into some of that. So anyway, I'll answer any questions you have. All right, thank you.
Thank you. Mike? Good afternoon.
Good afternoon. Hope everybody's been safe and doing social distancing. You go to the store, it's kind of hard to do.
They have a Tractor Supply.
Stay out of Tractor Supply, I learned that Sunday. Wow. You couldn't get their side with it. In or outside. I want to give y'all a little update on this landfill. We're currently in the process of, have contracted with King Construction. We put it out to bid and got our bids back. And King Construction was the winner of those to remodel or upgrade our stormwater ponds. We have two major stormwater ponds that we're gonna upgrade their outfalls and the size of them. We're gonna raise them up a little bit higher so they can hold more water. And do the outfalls, change the outfalls to upgrade those outfalls in them. And that was awarded to King Construction. Got right many bids on it, but those are 2 to 1. Also on our HHW, y'all were aware last month I told you we had a large increase in that. Well, normally we have a pickup every quarter. So we have one in December, one on March 24th. And in 11 days, we had to have another one. Oh my Lord. And we had more tonnage than we did for the whole quarter, first quarter of the year, picked up this month, on May 5th. And the amount of volume still coming in, well, most likely, we will have to have another one sometime the 1st of June. So the volume of household hazardous waste, mostly paint, 99% paint, is coming into the facility rapidly. People are cleaning out the closets and painting and bringing what's left home. So we're got a lot of usage on the facility. Over at the MRF, we've had a reduction of about 252 tons over the prior time last year. We had a reduction of about 400 tons of commercial OCC. So coming in off our routes, we had a 400-ton reduction, but we had an increase of 158 on co-mingling, and I can tell you that came from the centers.
Yep.
Never seen so many pulls coming from the centers in all the years we've been here, as high as 20, 22, and 23 pulls in any given day. The people were staying home and they were recycling.
Has it
So
exactly
the
offset?
restaurants wasn't doing near what people did when they stayed home.
Has it exactly offset?
It's an offset.
But I mean, has it been an equal offset?
No, it won't be. It's about 252 tons lower overall.
Right. That's
So
what you would
cardboard
expect.
was down 400 and commingle went up by 158 tons. And our rejects are still at 14.5%. So we got them to 14.5% and keeping them there, which is what we had prior to Charleston. That's what we're doing now. Still trying to get used to Machine X and how that's working. We still have some bugs and stuff, and we work on them daily. It takes a while to get used to that computerized equipment. Also, on the cardboard and paper routes, fiber sales, we are, as y'all see in the report, in the month of April, we sold them for $127 a ton. On cardboard, we sold for $187 a ton some this month, and some at $130 a ton. So we were still better overall than what we sold, so cardboard went up. Of course, newspaper right now, we're not selling any straight newspaper, we're mostly selling mixed paper. Mix was being sold at $7.50 a ton, and it went to $50 a ton in this month. So we're seeing paper prices, the fiber prices are creeping back up. Office paper, last month sold for $152.
This month we sold for $272. So over $100 increase in just SOP in 1 month. So we're seeing them tick up, and all this stuff is being sent domestically. So that means the American markets are using it, utilizing it within our domestic market. So, which is a good thing. And that's all I had, other than the Green Handed Award, which is Ronnie Stewart with Big D Recycling, was chosen by landfill for this month. Any questions?
Mr. Chairman,
Yes.
our optical sorters, how has that affected our labor?
So we went down to 17 workers from 26. We're still in the testing phase. Optical sorters are still not forming at 100%. Because of the COVID, the Canadians were not able to come down and finish the performance testing and complete the testing. They did what they could do for computers from far off. But they're coming back on June 8th, and we'll be here for 2 weeks to finish up and get the performance of the equipment up to par.
The optical sorters should be more efficient and that they can actually be more specific in picking up the items.
So-
Have we actually seen the results of that?
So PET is a good example, Mr. Ives. So before the optical sorters, we was average getting 3 to 4 bales a day doing our manual sorting. We went to 8 to 10 bales a day. We had 3 people doing it before, we had 2 now. So the volume of PET has went up dramatically. It went through the roof.
Good,
Thank you.
good.
So what the equipment we bought is doing what we were hoping it was doing, pull more of that out rather than putting it in the landfill
That's right.
and
Absolutely.
using that and getting rid of the plastic.
And it's reduced overall labor.
The other thing is Machine X is launching a leasing program for Small-Your-Own robots, which is a new program. Have you seen that or
I
heard
have
that
not.
from them?
I have not seen that or heard about that.
It's a new robotics program that they have had that they're now going to be leasing for the efficiency. It's a robotic program, and Machine X is who we deal with, so I was wondering if that
I'll
had
definitely
come
find
up.
out about it. The salesman hadn't seen me.
Okay, if you would talk with them about it, because to me, if you're going to expend money on that machinery, the reason I was willing to do that was to pull more recyclables out rather than what you could do by human hands. And if they're doing another program with robotics, I'd like to know what that is and have the paperwork to look at it. And it's still a good program. I think it's great, and I'm glad before Carl got on the board that he came and talked with us about the batteries and the toxins that we're choosing not to put in the landfill that we're paying to ship out. And I think that's great. They've done a good job over there because batteries, a lot of times you have fires with them, and we haven't had any with that. So
We try to keep them, get them taken as soon as possible.
that's a great job. Thank you.
Okay, thanks, Mike.
One thing about the household hazardous waste, every bit of that stuff could go in the landfill. We've elected past boards to take it out, and then we have to pay for somebody to come and get it and dispose of it. We're using as much of the latex paint as we can for mix it for daily cover, which is acceptable by DHEC standards. So, a lot of these programs, we don't get a lot of credit for, but, we're keeping the stuff out of the landfill and as you can see these tonnage, we're not talking about car batteries here.
Right.
We're talking about little.
Yeah.
Takes a lot to make a ton.
Yeah.
Takes a lot of energy to take,
Yeah.
lots of hands moving.
Mr. Chairman,
Go ahead.
my part on the agenda, or just, place this stuff, we've sent this information to you before. This is what DHEC posted, when they ran the ad in the Sun News on May the 7th. And it's pretty good information on what has been done, timelines. Of course, this is not all the timelines on what we've done over the last 3 years, trying to put the permit together. But, June 11th, DEAC will be holding a public hearing of some sort. Right now, it's virtual hearing. And it's gonna be from their office. And you can call in just kind of like we're calling in here. And we asked for the public input. My understanding, most of the time they post it, get any comments, any problem, they'd have a public hearing. We requested a public hearing right up front where people would have another opportunity to talk about expansion. There's been numerous discussions. And after the June 11th public hearing, they take 30 more days to take comments after that. So, over the course of this thing, DHEC put off any kind of permitting when the pandemic started, and which put us more time on us and extending these things. So there's been a lot of opportunities to talk about it and review it and look at it. So June the 30th will be the final day for taking comments, and then DHEC will do whatever they're gonna do.
We did offer them before all this to use the building here to have that, but they've decided to do it virtual. Okay.
Yeah, they were trying to put together on how it should be. The last public hearing was up here at Blackwater School. And, we told them we'd make anything available to help them trying to put some type meeting together. Whether it was, but they've taken the approach, and it's probably the best approach that they do it at their place. And, then it's not caught up that we pushed it a certain way.
In order for us to participate, we need to enroll just like anybody, any member of the public, correct?
That's right.
Thank you.
So we look forward to June the 30th through the process. And that's all I have. I just want to thank all the employees through what we've been through.
Yes.
The centers have just been unbelievably busy. I'm like Mike, I have never seen it, so much stuff through the centers, and I've never seen people so aggravated with not being able to get their stuff there and to dump it there, and we've had a lot of complaints, but the employees have done a great job.
Yes.
They're out there in the weather, any kind of weather. They just do a good job, as all the employees do.
That's it. I want to commend you, Danny, on guiding us through this pandemic, and we've been able to work with staff, and we still haven't had any illnesses reported back to us.
Right.
That's outstanding. The fact that they've been able to work through this, and the county's been working with us and providing employees help with the flow that we've had. Congratulations on getting us this far.
The deal now, when Nanette comes in the morning with that thermometer gun, he takes it, well, you mean I can't go home? No, you can't go home today, but we've had a couple of employees out with children at home and those type things, but really, we haven't had anybody.
No one's been out for an extended period. That's true. That's great that they've been that resilient too. Thank goodness. Yeah.
Thanks for your support.
Thank you, Danny.
Anything else for Danny? Thank you, Danny. We didn't have any committee reports, so we'll move on to old business. And That will be, FY 2021 budget recommendation.
Thank you. Yes, as we discussed at the last board meeting, per Horry County's request, we are going to maintain our current operating budget that we have for FY 20. As we enter into FY 21, July 1st, we will maintain our new capital budget that was discussed and talked about at our budget workshop, as the majority of our capital budget, of course, is funded from those designated funds. So tonight, I'm just requesting your approval of the FY 21 operating budget totaling $27,673,970, and FY 21 capital improvement budget totaling $17,341,356. And of course, when the county recommends us to do an amendment to the budget to increase the funds as needed for this next year, I'll bring it back to the board for approval at that time.
Okay, thank you. Can I get a,
I move that we accept the recommendation of the Director of Finance and Administration.
Second.
it's been properly moved in second. Are there any questions? All those in favor, let it be known by saying aye.
Aye.
Ayes have it.
Thank
The
you.
recommendation is accepted. Thank you. Under new business, A, nominating committee appointments for new officers for the upcoming year. And I would like to ask Ms. Pam Breach if she would chair that committee. I'd like to ask Mr. Campbell if he would serve on that committee, and I'm going to put myself on that committee. So that will be the nominating committee to select a slate of officers to start in July. Okay? Roundtable discussion, anything for roundtable discussion? Ladies first, go ahead.
I was gonna be nice and let him be first, but that's
He was slow. I saw him tension over here.
As you know, for the last few years that I've been testifying before the Senate to keep them from trying to ban us from, or the counties and cities from banning plastic bags and other kinds of manufacturing. In my opinion, the future of our landfill and any landfill to keep it to where we don't have to keep expanding is for our legislators to do their due diligence and to pass legislation banning plastic bags themselves, since they don't want the municipalities, they want it to be across the board, and I'm sure that would be better. And for 2 years testifying before the Senate, I think they should, and we'll be looking at that again. I noticed that they haven't been meeting like they have been. But to me, the future of any landfill is going to be, if we make any difference, is to work within the perimeters of asking our legislators to ban certain things from this landfill. If they would ban certain plastics and they would ban certain manufacturing so that this manufacturing would either be compostable or recyclable in the way we do business today and other landfills do, that would cut down on what goes into a landfill by about 60 to 75%, in my opinion. I think we still need to be working with that. I think our lobbyist still needs to work with that. And Mr. Norfleet Jones, after coming back from a convention, had asked me to look into some different things that they were talking about in working with manufacturers on the global level. I talked with Mr. Besson about getting me some figures, and I'm sure he's been very busy for the last 3 months with things that are more important to this landfill's running than getting that together. Hopefully in the future, he and I will be able to sit down again and talk with that. But I would like to say that reading the Waste Advantage newsletter that we get, for the last 3 that we have had, they have been working with just that, and different states have been working with their legislation which are looking into things as far as banning those kinds of products. They're not wanting them, if you have something this size, you don't put it in something like this and 3 things. So they are working with sustainability to where this can happen, and people's legislators and senators will actually look into banning that packaging that we can't process other than digging a hole and putting it in it, which is not what we want to do.
I may be wrong, and he may not be still here, but don't we have a legislator sitting right outside the door that he can listen to what we're saying?
Well, if we had any room for him, maybe so. I'm not gonna get into the social distancing with him, and to be perfectly
Well, I was
honest,
just saying, we're sitting here talking about wanting legislators and people to show up. We've had one here today, and we haven't let him in, and now we're kind of badmouthing him when we had one sitting right outside.
Well, I don't think we badmouth him, I
Not
think.
badmouthing,
Well, I think-
splitting hairs there. but-
Yeah, I think she's right, and we want to stick to the rules that we have set up, so I'm not going to, I was gonna say earlier, if someone wants to leave and he can come in and sit, I'm still not in the frame, we have a certain time for input, and so, I'm gonna forego that.
I'm just saying, this is a open round table discussion.
Yeah.
I mean, he can definitely listen. I mean, if we set up a chair. over
Yeah,
there-
certainly he can listen, but someone would have to leave in order for him to come in and listen. But I am not going to get into, I think what she is saying is what other states are doing. Is he in the legislation now, or is he running for the legislation?
I have no idea.
Running for reelection.
Okay, so he's running for reelection, so I'm sure he's heard Pam's plea.
yes, I know Mr. Hardy, and
Yeah, so he's heard, this is nothing new
this isn't anything new.
that he has not heard.
Right,
And I'll go to that, and I think she's right. I have talked to Luke Rankin, I have talked to Alan Clemens, I have talked. We talk about plastics and disposal of plastics and getting legislations involved just about every meeting we have here. I have yet to see one come unless it's a reelection time, to mention their involvement. We've taken it to the state capitol, we've taken it everywhere. And so I would like to see those people, when they get back and they start meeting, to seriously start thinking about doing something with that, rather than, trying to bring one guy in and ask him all of these questions. Because we've sent you,
yeah.
one time wouldn't even let you talk. But Pam has been leading this, so it's nothing new that he has.
It isn't anything new, and I'm not picking on them, but what I was getting to was there are several organizations. The GRI is a waste standard change that they're looking at how companies can actually measure and understand the waste and how it affects activities, the products, the services, and financially. And I think we need to look at all 3 of those things and how they do. And there are groups now that are working with that, because the waste standard, and I think a standard needs to be set for this as well as other public utilities that will help us seek a direction. And a lot of people now in companies are directing their investments to those companies that provide solutions for the reduction, the reuse, and recycling of waste. And I would like our staff to let us know when they feel that they can let us have committee meetings again, and some of our committees, the recycling committee and diversion committee, can get together and set up like this and discuss some of this, because to me, that is the only future that there is in dealing with trash. It isn't to bury it, it isn't to do that, but if we can work with our officials to reduce it and to package it to where we can handle it today, that would be great, because there are a lot of states doing that. There are a lot of companies now, and they're coming to our conventions like Mr. Jones was at, that are actually coming to us and telling us that they are getting donations and working and spending millions of dollars to find these things out and to work through this so that we do something besides land selling, and that's the future. And I would just like, when our staff feels like they have some time, this coming month, I think some of our committees need to get together and discuss this and to come up with some solutions and some things that we would actually like to put before some of our leaders to help us do. Because yes, I have been trying to do that for 5 years.
And I agree with you. I go back maybe 4 or 5 years ago when we went to Washington DC. The only company that came in, 3M, came into that. There were more than 2,000 people there. Some of the manufacturers came in. Only one, 3M, came in and said that they were about trying to reduce the amount of packaging. There was a lot of legislation talk then, not just from the locals, but from statewide. When I say statewide, I'm talking about the United States, to try and reduce the packaging. And you're absolutely right. We're gonna run out of dirt. I'll be gone.
Producers have got to step up.
Somebody's gotta step up, because we ain't gonna have enough holes to put the stuff in, unless somebody steps in and try to help us. I got you. Let me hit no. Go ahead.
No, I'm good.
Go ahead, no, please.
Well, when Danny and I were in Nashville, we had something said from the podium that he and I had never heard before, and it was from a politician. Freely admitted that the reason he was there because his boss was scared. Because of the grassroots movement and because industry, which was the money, had turned the other cheek and was concerned about plastics. That's what that one was about. Danny and I sat in a very large room, and I don't know the number, you may know, but there was a lot of industry there. There was a lot of industry on the podium speaking about things they were doing and plans they were making and the changes in the ways to recyclable. So, as the old people would say, the worm is turning. It's not turning very quickly, but it has changed direction. I would like to thank Ms. Creech for her work, but as she said, that's just a start. But we have, I feel, some things available for us now that we've never had before. I think we have some interest that's never been there before. Whether the interest comes from the right reason or the wrong reason makes no difference.
As long as it comes.
It's there, we'll take it and we'll use it.
Yeah.
But that was a strange comment. I'd never heard that honesty before.
Well, Procter & Gamble gave us a presentation in Nashville last year about what they're doing, and they showed that they are concerned. But we had Coca-Cola backtrack and say they're not going to meet the objectives that they set. They're going to stay in plastic because plastic works for them. They can't find a replacement that works.
And
That's what concerns me, is some of the retreading is going back and they're backtracking some of the previous commitments.
Yeah.
Okay,
And we already have.
Hang on. I had Sam, did you have a comment you wanted to make?
No, I made all my comments.
Oh, okay, I'm sorry. Go ahead.
We already have
As of right now.
spent the money and have the machinery to process glass. And we have supported the glass bottle bills coming out that have never materialized. And if we banned plastic and we had a glass bill that we could do that, Coca-Cola would have no choice but to go back to glass.
yeah, they're gonna go where the money goes.
Right.
It's
And we
a
need
pass
to
to
work on
us
it.
anyway to them. I don't know why it's a big deal. It's just passing it off to the consumer.
Yeah,
If somebody got to raise the prices 5 cents, the consumer wants Coca-Cola, he's gonna pay the 5 cents.
that's right.
They're gonna pay it.
That's right.
Yeah, I think the answer is, Sam, is with most everybody. Ain't gonna change it till somebody makes it.
That's
I understand the principle, I know I can pass the nickel on, but if I don't have to do anything,
I'm not gonna do nothing.
I'm not
that's
gonna-
that's the
I mean, you can look on the
best.
back of that water bottle you got there, they're gonna give you 5 cents if you carry it in New York, or 10 cents in California.
Yeah,
I mean, South Carolina can do the same thing.
California is amazing.
yeah, they can do the same thing.
And then what's the extra 5 cents? You're gonna buy 24 packs of water and they're gonna charge you an extra 5 cents on 24 packs?
And that,
That's a whole extra 50
California,
cents.
where we're out there, that nickel comes when that bottle's made, and it goes to the state. And if that bottle doesn't come back, nobody recycles that bottle. They had millions and millions of dollars that they didn't know what to do with.
Yeah, people recycle
Well, we
aluminum
made a-
cans like crazy, and they are worth less than 5 cents.
Danny,
So if
Danny
you make
Hardy,
everything
I
worth
said,
5 cents, everybody and their brothers will be taking bottles. Be like the good old days in the back of the
That's
Trying
right.
to get all a glass bottle for 10 cents.
You know, I used to make my living picking up glass bottles.
Boy Scouts of America, that's how
I'm ready to walk a million miles. Get a bottle.
Danny Hardy and I sat on the bench and made bets. You can't set a piece of plastic or a glass bottle down, and 3 minutes was the maximum it sat there. Somebody picks it up and recycles it. Danny Hardy, I guess out of boredom, I was dumpster diving, getting bottles and plastic out. And then he struck up a conversation with him. What do you think he made?
Dumpster diving
Yeah,
for plastic?
yeah, for plastic and glass.
And I tell them,
He said somewhere about $65,000 a year. Dumpster diving for plastic and glass. But that's California, and there is, you don't see it. So it is doable, and I think,
well, I mean, our neighbors, Marion County makes you, they have, I mean, I got places over there and we have to pay a fee of $30-some a month per rental property, and they supply them with a can to put your recyclables in. I mean, if our neighbor can do it, we can do a lot more over here too.
but we just gotta keep pushing.
Bring your bottle back.
Yeah.
Back in the day.
My Uncle Bruce told me a lie too. He said, you take my tobacco bar bottle one more time, boy, I'm gonna get a switch on.
That's right.
We take them and go buy crickets.
You had,
Yes.
yeah, we finally got Bo, he's got his hand up again.
Pam and I have participated in a composting webinar this past month on May 7th. And I asked Esther to circulate to all of you access to that because it's an excellent webinar. It's only an hour. And I'm just going to give you some quick highlights of what was in that webinar because it was very interesting. But the topic was commercial composting and solid waste policy in South Carolina. And it was hosted by the Conservation Voters of South Carolina. The participants were Upstate Forever, Atlas Organics, and the Coastal Conservation League. Upstate Forever is a group that works out of Greenville, and they were making the presentation on what Greenville is doing. And Atlas Organics is the company that's processing their compost. Atlas Organics also operates in Durham, North Carolina, and down in a site down in Florida. The Coastal Conservation League had a representative who used to work for SMART, and she was talking about the experience in Charleston. One topic was discussed was the Senate Bill 1022 introduced by Vincent Shaheen, and that's a bill directing DHEC to prepare a 5-year plan to reduce organic waste. Several things came out of this that were kind of interesting. One thing that was maintained by Upstate Forever was that DHEC has represented that there's likely not to be another MSW landfill in the state. We've been pretty convinced that there isn't likely to be one in this county. It was news to learn that DHEC does not believe there would not be another one introduced in the state. So we're running out of options in the state. And I listened to what Amelia Wood had to say earlier. Ms. Wood, it isn't just this organization that needs to address the topic. We need to get our state legislature involved and some alternatives as well. And it's interesting to know that they don't see a future for growth and sites. So we need to develop alternatives. Greenville processes 12,000 tons of compost, and Atlas is the processor. They have discovered that 41% of MSW is organics and can be processed. There's several advantages to composting. It's not just producing compost. They can be put in gardens. By doing the compost process, you're removing the wet, because you're putting it in drying fields, and you're also removing the methane. And DHEC allows you to use it as daily cover. So there are advantages in our own processes to compost MSW so that that stream is reduced. We're reducing the amount of wet, one of the things that we produce, and the methane which we produce. And so that's a very interesting procedure to think about that we could do that could help us in our processing. So it's really something we really need to look into. But the food waste is only 22%. The rest is paper, fiber, and other organics. And the way Charleston gets the separation is that their tipping fee is 13 cents for organics and 66 cents for MSW. And that's the inducement for the collectors to separate what they bring in. So that's something to think about, of what the scale would have to be. We certainly don't have 66 cents in our tipping fee, and we don't want to go there. But we could look at inducements to try to get the separation, because if we could get the wet out, there's so much more that we could recycle. It's in the rest of the stream. So there's some practical aspects of this that we should be looking at. So I just want to give you those highlights. You've been sent the connection to where you can view this webinar. I would suggest that you spend an hour to listen to it because it was very informative. I mean, I would really like to hear these participants talk further, and I think we need to introduce them here so that we can continue the dialogue, because solid waste policy in the state needs to be pursued, and we need to be part of the discussion.
Good. I did get the link, and I'll be honest, I have not had a chance to listen to it yet, but it's still there.
It's still there. It's recorded.
I will get to it. I promise you. Next time I talk to you, I will say, boy, I listened to it. I did have one thing. I did a 10-minute segment with Diane Devon Stokes, which will air in June. And basically, I talked about how the solid waste was handling the pandemic experience. I talked a little bit about the store and what's going on there, and a little bit about the tonnage of recycles that has been coming in. It's only about 10 minutes. She thought it was good. I thought it was good. You can make up your own decision on your own line. But it will start airing in June. It's on Monday, Wednesdays, and Fridays, and it's through HTC Channel 4.
It's at 8, 12, and 8.
Go ahead.
8 a.m.
Carl has it. And after that, it's gonna go live on YouTube. So, you know, we'll be out there on YouTube, or at least I will. If you have a problem with it, I think can't you solicit YouTube to have it taken down or something like that?
We will take you down.
Anyway, anything else for roundtable discussion? If not, I need to get a motion. We need to go into executive session. We need to do some personnel matters. Been properly moved in second, so we will move to executive session. We can meet right down the hall here. I think we have enough room down there that we can talk.
Has left. Muted.
Come out of it.
So moved. I have a motion to come out of executive
Yeah,
session.
right. I need to get a second. Okay, any questions? Properly moved in second. Everybody in favor, say aye.
Aye.
We're out of executive session, so I appreciate that. I need to get a motion on the contract.
Make a motion, we offer Mr. Knight his new contract.
I second.
It's been properly moved in second that we offer the new contract to Mr. Knight, who has had an opportunity to read and has so graciously accepted it. Are there any questions? All those in favor, let it be known by saying aye.
Aye.
And the motion has been carried, and Ms. Knight has a new contract.
Congratulations.
For 3 years.
Condolences. Thank you.
Yeah. Oh, and let me, this candy bag that you guys have up here, Spokes of Hope, which is a community-based group in Long, South Carolina, put this together for all of the solid waste employees for their hard work and their dedication during this time. So they're the ones that did that for you. So if you see anybody from Spokes of Hope up in Long, South Carolina, Danny spent a lot of time up there. Thank them for the candy.
They at the old motorcycle bar at the river, right across the river from Marie,
Yeah.
they're right there.
Okay, so we thank them, and again, I would like to thank, Danny and his staff for all the hard work that they have done in this past, year. And I don't have anything else. Does anybody else have anything? Carl?
Dan, I'd like you to have, designate somebody to send a letter to Spokes of Hope, thanking them and express our appreciation, our gratitude for the contribution and appreciation. So have somebody send them a letter saying thank you.
Esther and her group put the bags together for the people at the centers, and there's 24 of them. They work different shifts, so they had a time getting the bag to each employee, but they did it, and,
Yeah, so, yeah, let's send Spokes of Hope a,
when I first learned about this group, you remember when we had a tornado last year, it crossed Highway 57 up at Dale Pontiac, and a black lady's house was damaged. And they came with wanting, some grant money for tipping fees and stuff like that, and y'all voted it in. The first time I had met the group, but they are putting a lot of food and stuff in the community.
Carlisle was involved with that group, heavily involved with Carlisle Berry, the new board member.
Okay, anything else for the good of the cause? If not, I'll take a motion for adjournment.
So good.
Meeting adjourned.
Thank y'all.
Thank y'all.
Good to me.